That's the movie or the clip for the movie Dodgeball. And what followed, there was a lot of buzz. Let me read you. This is the actual piece of text that we are going to analyze together. So I'll read it to you. Follow along with me. This is from the National Association for Sport and Physical Education. And the National Association for Sport and Physical Education sets the standard, and this is a position statement. So an official statement on dodgeball in physical education. Here we go. With the recent release of both a movie, that would be the movie Dodgeball, and a television show about dodgeball, debate about the game's merits and improprieties has escalated in the media and on the NASPE listserv. Thus, the National Association for Sport and Physical Education would like to reiterate its position about including dodgeball in school physical education programs. Okay, so what do they think about having dodgeball in school activities? NASPE believes that dodgeball is not an appropriate activity for K through 12 school physical education programs. The purpose of physical education is to provide students with the knowledge, skills, and confidence needed to be physically active for a lifetime, a daily dose of physical activity for health benefits, positive experiences so that kids want to be physically active outside of physical education class and throughout their lifetime. Continuing on. The goals of physical education can be obtained through a wide variety of appropriate physical activities. Getting and keeping children and adolescents active is one of the biggest challenges facing parents and youth leaders. And then they give us some statistics here. 61.5% of children aged 9 to 13 years do not participate in any organized physical activity during their non-school hours, and 22.6% do not engage in any free time physical activity. 1/3 of high school students are not adequately active, and over 10% do not participate in any physical activity at all. And 16% of United States youth aged 6 to 19 are overweight, triple the proportion of 25 years ago. And then here we have a fact. According to NASPE's Appropriate Practices for Elementary School Physical Education, the year 2000, in a quality physical education class, teachers involve all children in activities that allow them to participate actively, both physically and mentally. Activities such as, okay, so I think they're going to probably list out those things. So first, you notice that they listed out what they think is important as far as standards. They then followed it up with facts about activity, current activity, and then here we have, let me finish that up. It says activities such as relay races, dodgeball, and elimination tag provide limited opportunities for everyone in the class, especially the slower, less agile students who need the activity the most. In other words, in those kinds of activities, if you're not very active and you need to be active, you're usually the first ones out in those activities. And as someone who was not very physically agile, I would have to say that's true. The students who are eliminated first in dodgeball are typically the ones who most need to be active and practice their skills. Many times these students are also the ones with the least amount of confidence in their physical abilities, being targeted because they are the, quote, weaker players, and being hit by a hard-thrown ball does not help kids to develop confidence. The arguments most often heard in favor of dodgeball are that it allows for the practice of important physical skills and kids like it. And then they're going to follow this up with, so they have a counterclaim. This is why some people might say that dodgeball's good, but they say dodgeball does provide a means of practicing some important physical skills: running, dodging, throwing, and catching. However, there are many activities that allow practice of these skills without using human targets or eliminating students from play. Some kids may like it, the most skilled, the most confident, but many do not! Exclamation point. Certainly not the student who gets hard in the stomach, head, or groin. And it is not appropriate to teach our children that you win by hurting others. In a recent article about the new GSN Games Network TV show called Extreme Dodgeball, there is talk of developing and executing extreme strategies to annihilate opponents. and the use of terms such as throw-to-kill ratios and headshots. NASBE asks, is this the type of game that you want children to be exposed to? And then there is a citation. Okay, so there is the article, and then I will show you how we would analyze this, and this part is done for you, and you will do something similar in your session 2 activity. You will answer these questions about the Malala article that you can reread if you need to, and I would suggest that you do that. I would also suggest that you kind of take notes as you reread it again or review it to do the activity. Okay, so we're going to use this form here, and it's quarantine day number 4,372, thereabouts somewhere. So before you come up with a thesis like what's the effect of Malala Yousafzai's speech, or what's the effect of this NASBE position statement, you need to first understand the author's purpose for that text. So we're going to start with these questions. So who is the author of this text? I could go back to that position statement and I would find the name of the organization and who they are specifically. So I know it's the National Association for Sport and Physical Education, and they're the organization that's responsible for PE teachers, and they set standards for physical activity in schools. So what caused them to write this position statement? So one of the things was that dodgeball was being played in schools. There was also a movie that came out about dodgeball, and also a TV show escalating the debate over dodgeball's merits and whether it would be good for schools. So who is the audience? Who would be reading this message? Obviously PE teachers. Parents maybe would read this, and then anybody else who would want what's best for children. It's not really for students per se. Most people that would be reading that would be parents and teachers as far as who is making the curriculum. Okay, so then the next thing you're going to do, if you notice this, it says scan the text and underline any clues about why the author wrote it. Okay, so those could be sentences, phrases, or even verbs that help you understand the author's purpose, where you're trying to figure out the exigence of why they wrote it. Now, step back and look at your notes and underline those clues. What does the author want the audience to think or feel as a result of this piece of writing? Okay, well, it's pretty clear that they don't want us to think dodgeball is a suitable activity for children. So we would write it this way. We're going to use that same thing with the infinitive. So the NASPE's purpose is to reiterate that dodgeball is not an appropriate activity for K through 12 PE programs. Okay, so we're going to follow the guidelines where we're going to use the infinitive phrase to reiterate. Okay, that's the purpose. Now we're going to look at the choices they made. Think about the restaurant. The restaurant made choices about what the wait staff would wear. They made choices about what would be in the restrooms. So what kind of rhetorical choices did NASPE make about how to get their message across? So those would be rhetorical choices for writing. So patterns you see. Whether you see how they organize their writing. Also, sentence structure. Do you see examples of logos, pathos, ethos? All of those strategies we've looked at before. So here's one for, they listed the purpose of PE classes, and then they list those statistics. So organization was important, that show the challenges that parents and leaders are having in accomplishing these purposes. Then NASPA reveals how dodgeball limits accomplishing those purposes. Okay, so they've set up their argument. Here's what we're trying to do. Here are the statistics. Here's our problem. And look how dodgeball does not measure up to what our problem is. Another strategy is that they're using some strongly negative connotative diction. They're using metaphors such as weaker players, throw-to-kill ratios, headshots to reveal that the game has a negative connotation because of the terminology used with the game. Okay, so you want to identify at least 2 to 3 rhetorical choices that are made, and then finally it'll take you to a thesis statement. So you're going to sum up in 1 or 2 sentences how the author uses these key rhetorical choices to achieve the purpose. So your thesis statement would follow this method that you see here on the screen. So in this one, In its statement to PE teachers and parents in response to the debate over dodgeball in education, the NASPA reiterates that dodgeball is not appropriate in PE class by revealing that dodgeball does not meet the criteria for physical education and highlighting its negative consequences for children. So notice, they're telling us first, the first part of that, they're giving us the context of when it was written and why. In response to, in its statement, in response to the debate, who is the person? Who is the audience? The NASPA reiterates what? What is their point? That dodgeball is not appropriate in PE class. How do they do that? By revealing that dodgeball does not meet the criteria for physical education and highlighting its negative consequences for children. Okay, so you will follow a particular